and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Supernatural, metaphysical, paranormal. You know, all those things you've been wondering about? Are you ready to go deeper into the realms of the unknown? I hope you've got your walking shoes on, because life is an adventure, and this is the journey. Come on, let's go. Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. This is the Journey Radio Show, and we are the She-Squatchers. I'm Jen Cruz, your host, and I've got my trusty teammates, Jenna Grover. And she's on mute.
On mute.
She's on mute again.
My finger. I'm on my phone, and you know how you do a double tap? Sorry, hey everybody, it's me. It's Jenna.
Double tap Jenna. She's there.
Double tap Jenna.
Yeah, and then we've got Tammy Trickle.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, and we have a really special guest for you tonight. Tammy, would you like to introduce him?
Sure. Why? This is somebody that we actually met when we were shooting a documentary in Ohio, and we got connected to him through some friends. Thank you, Amy Boo. And so we're really excited. We worked very well together, and we're excited to do future endeavors with him, our friend Todd.
Hi, Todd. Welcome to the show.
Hello, ladies. Very nice to see you all again, and very nice to see you for the first time, Jenna, since you weren't there in Ohio.
Sorry.
She's double tapping again. Double tap.
I did it again. It's very nice being, and I cannot wait to be in the next one. I cannot wait to go out with you guys. So sorry I missed that one, but next time.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be, for me, it's a very exciting endeavor. I felt comfortable with everybody right off the bat, because in all honesty, when I got the phone call, they were, my friend Ed, he's like, oh, just go, tell them about the hot spots and stuff like that. So I wasn't, even though I've been through that before, I wasn't quite expecting that when I got there. But, you guys everybody just made me feel comfortable right away. It's just really good energy. You can just feel the good energy amongst the whole team. It's really a good feeling.
Yay. Well, we really enjoyed having you along with us, Todd. We really did. And of course, I loved looking at all your gear.
Right.
So, Todd, you are a paranormal investigator, and then you've moved also into Bigfoot investigations. Can you tell us how you got started in the paranormal world? Like, how did that happen for you?
Well, for me, and I believe for a lot of other people, it's experiences I've had since I was a child. I remember my very first experience. I'm probably about 5 or 6. My father had a workshop down in the basement where he would make things out of wood and fix things. And I'd go down there and I'd see 3 spirits above his workbench. And I'd go down there probably on a bi-daily basis and yell at him and tell him to get out. Well, one day my mom heard me and she'd asked me who I was yelling at. And I told her, I said, there's ghosts in Dad's workshop. Well, like most parents do, it's your imagination. They just kind of blow it off. And, the more of these things, happen, then, you're informed that it's your imagination. So, and I've always explored like abandoned houses and buildings all my life. It just really intrigued me to go into these buildings. But, it dawned on me one day, if all these things were my imagination, why are they still so vivid in my mind? I think about it, just talking about it, I can picture, being down in the basement yelling at these spirits. So that's what prompted me to get into what I'm going to say, organized investigating, because, I think a lot of people have been investigating, doing their own thing, like in the 80s and 90s, but back then, we didn't take audio recorders or anything like that with us. But in 2000, I got into what I was called structured investigating with the team. And it kind of went slow at first. The founders, we just didn't feel like we were, doing enough investigation. So a couple of us had broke off and we formed Tri-C Ghost Hunters, which Tri-C stands for in Ohio is the city of Canton, Columbus, and Cleveland. So we actually had 3 teams. We were the largest team in Ohio. And then things just really took off from there. We got more investigations. And as everybody knows, the more you investigate, the better you get with your equipment. If you don't use your equipment for 6 months, you may pick it up and say, okay, how do I zoom on this, or how do I do this or that? So we actually started to average 25 investigations a year. Now, for some people, that may not seem like very many, but when you look at all the research you have to do on that location, going over all that data, that's 25 is a lot. But anyways, moving forward, that opened us up to, some writings that we, actually one of the other co-founders and myself, we had a radio show on another network. And then, of course, the pilots came along, working with other groups. And that's the one thing I really liked about it is, there's no experts in this field. And, it really, to me, it means a lot when you can learn off of other people. Take, for example, getting into BigFoot Research. I don't know as much as you ladies know, but I am an avid outdoorsman. I know the sounds animals make. And so I know I can determine between what, is that a coyote or, what is that? I know I can make that determination. Back to the paranormal field. I did participate in some writings for a book called Paranormal. Oh, geez, now I'm going to forget the name of it. And I just told you guys earlier. Oh, but I've got 3 writings and 3 editions of that book. I'm sorry, I just can't remember the name of it.
That's all right. It'll come to you.
Right off the top of my head when I was talking to you earlier, but now I can't think of it. But it's really been a fun road. I always been interested in UFOs and Bigfoot. When the pandemic hit, that was kind of my opportunity to get into it because things really slowed down in the paranormal community. When I talked about doing these 25 investigations a year, these were private residences. So when the pandemic hit, the private resident investigation just totally went aside. Some groups still do them. I did talk to one of the co-founders of Tri-C the other day. We keep in contact. I did split off from that team. I wanted to kind of do my own thing with the paranormal community. I wanted to work with more groups, different groups, and different buildings such as Mansfield Reformatory and others like that in Ohio. But they still do private investigations, but they're not very many because of COVID. People are afraid to let other people in their house. And that really put a big damper on it. Really put a big damper on that. So, being an avid outdoorsman that I am, when Ed Wiland from Buckeye BigFoot Research contacted me to assist him on some investigations, I jumped right on it. And, the more I did it, I'm like, this, I want to do this more often because this is actually more of a challenge than looking for spirit. I've proved to myself, I've proved to others that spirit does exist. So now it's time for the next challenge. And I do believe this is going to be a tougher challenge, but I'm all on board for it.
So, doing paranormal research, I'm sure you've had some hair-raising experiences doing that.
Yes.
What is your scariest or most gut-wrenching experience that you've had?
Um, I've had quite a few. The one I'm going to speak of is it. Oh God, brain fart again. I don't know why my brain's not working. Probably because it's so late. It's past my bedtime. But Waverly Hills.
Same.
Okay, that I one of the things that they say happen there is the creeper, and he's typically up on the third floor. And sure enough, we were setting up that night, and I was at that time. I don't think groups use DVRs anymore, but back then we were using a DVR setup. We had 4 cameras placed throughout the building. So I was going through the building and just fine tuning the cameras, radioing back to the base. They're telling me, oh, up, down, left, right, that kind of stuff. So I got down to the last camera on the third floor. I turned around, and lo and behold, there's a creeper, and for like a split second, I was like, oh shit. But then, my adrenaline started pumping, and I'm like, I gotta see if somebody's there. So I didn't chase, I briskly walked, towards that direction. Because there are also possibility. I mean, if that's a big building, anybody could get in there and, try to scare you. So, that was one thought I did have, that maybe that's not the creeper, that's somebody else there. But I quickly made my way over to the staircase, jumping a few rows down. I would have been able to see somebody if they were, if they were in the staircase there. So, and at that point, I was like, wow, I just saw the creeper, And of course, everybody's radioing me. What happened? Where'd you go? Because they, it's just radio shut off after that. But that was my, other than as a child and growing up, that was my first experiencing an apparition as a official paranormal investigator. So that was very, very exciting. And the thing that really made things come together and made it really real for me was I also used to be into checking sun flares. When a sun flare bursts off the sun, it takes 72 hours, but it puts a high EMF field into our atmosphere within 72 hours of that sunburst or sun flare. And it had that night, was the 72 hours since that sun flare. So that, to me, that made it real for me that, hey, this is really happening here. I've had plenty other experience, especially at Mansfield Reformatory. If you haven't been there to investigate in Ohio, I highly recommend that location. Every time we've gone there, it's delivered. Now, not so much on an apparition scale, but on an EVP scale. But I've had quite a few scares. I never, in the beginning of paranormal research, I never really explored the spiritual side of it. And then one year I decided, I thought we had no psychic mediums on our teams at all. And I thought, well, we should probably bring in psychic mediums, because maybe a psychic medium can convince spirit to communicate with us or help spirit to communicate with us. And at that point in time, the medium we had on the Canton team, I was telling her some of my experiences, because I'd be in, like, say, one year we did a jail, Licking County Jail in Licking County, Ohio. And we were down in the holding cells, and the story goes with these holding cells, they stuffed these people in there like sardines. If somebody felt the urge to beat up on another person, it was done. There was nobody there to stop them. There's a lot of bad things happened in that jail. But I kept hearing in my mind, they beat me first. They beat me first. And when I have experiences like that, or used to have experiences like that, I thought it was all just, my mind's making this up. But after talking with, these psychic mediums, are like, you cannot ignore that. And that's one thing that I've had to learn over the years, how to, accept that, some things that you pick up on may be something you don't want to pick up on. So you're faced with dealing with that, or how do you address the person that's involved in this seeing that you've had, so that's been a learning experience for me. But it made me realize, in investigations that we can have all the high tech equipment we want, but I think the number one piece of equipment that we can have in any investigation, is ourselves. Our ability to open up and to be able to see these things and try to determine exactly what they are. I've had some pretty, well, I'll just tell you about this one case. We had a case in Ashtabula. It was in a neighborhood that back in the 50s and 60s, these were summer homes. They were right on the lake. Nice little cottages. But we had an investigation of demonology or demon possession, supposedly all over this house. Now, this was an investigation that we were asked to do after another team had been in there. But and there was nothing scary about it. This is more of how people can be misled. This poor lady, I'll put it to you this way: the psychic medium that was in her house told her the only thing she could do is burn her house down. Yeah, I was like, what? But it just goes to show that you have to be careful who you have investigate for you. That the house had black mold in the basement. Interviewing the owner of the house, I guess this team had brought in a demonologist and a demonologist in training. While they claimed that they were attacked in the basement. Okay. Well, when I went down in the basement for the first time, I told the owner that I'm not sending my people down there because black mold can affect some people within seconds, and it can make them deathly ill. So you can probably see where this investigation was going. Everything was pretty much debunked. And the sad thing about it is this team had charged this lady money for an investigation. And it's just not, that doesn't go right with me at all. Our team is never charged for investigation. If people insist on it, then we see to that money is donated to a local charity. You probably want some more ghost stories, huh? Gettysburg, you guys ever been to Gettysburg? Oh, that place is fabulous.
I have. I was driving through back from Virginia, and I took a different way, and I just happened to notice cannons in the field. I'm like, oh, there's signs. We're in Gettysburg. So I pulled over, and I got out of the car, and I was looking at the cannons in the field, and I just got the creepiest feeling there. And it was so quiet, and it was during the day, but it was a really heavy, thick energy to everything there for me. And I was just like, ew, I'm out of here. Jumped in the car and drove away.
Yeah, you get those heavy feelings. You kind of wonder, you wonder where it's coming from. I remember the very first time I was there, I asked a resident, what did they think was the most haunted area in Gettysburg? And they said all over. People died all over Gettysburg, not only on the battlefields, but in town, areas like that. It's just an exciting place for me to go to. I've been there 3 times. Can't wait to go back again. Might go back next year for the Battlefield Bash, which is put on by a local team in Gettysburg. A really cool bunch of people.
I lived in Virginia Beach on a military base where they had a big battle back during that time. And the house that I lived in was actually used as a headquarters for some of the generals or the higher ranking officers. And a lot of my experiences as a child were these soldiers going up the stairs, and they would come up the stairs, and there was a little balcony right outside of my bedroom door, and they would always stop right there at the balcony. And a few times I would have spirits, if I stayed in bed too late in the morning, shaking my bed, waking me up, trying to get me to get out of bed because I was oversleeping. But good times, all good things.
Let me ask you something. An experience like you just had, do you think it was just a spirit in that house, or do you think it was a family member?
Oh no, they were soldiers. It had nothing to do with me.
Like getting you up?
Yeah, just waking me up because if there's a military environment and I'm being lazy and not getting out of bed, it was their job to get me out of the bed, so they did.
And you're lucky that's all they did.
Yeah, they were very nice to me looking back. It scared me because I was a little kid and I didn't know any better. But but looking back at it, they were very nice to me. None of them ever tried to hurt me or anything.
Yeah, and I honestly believe for the most part, I don't really, we are in death as we were in life. So if you're an idiot, in life, you're going to be one mean person, you're going to be one in death. So that's where I think, that bad energy comes from. I really don't believe in that there's demonic things going on. That's just solely my belief, just from the research that I've done over the years. But I do believe that there are bad spirits and bad energy. I've seen investigators bring bad energy into an investigation. People
from themselves.
Yeah, from themselves. One of the things we do is, when we're doing our research before the investigation, is we do research on the property and that. One investor did a Google Earth on this address and saw it was a trailer park. And this person, she looked at trailer parks as a really, really bad thing, and I couldn't agree with that. I just can't, you can't say somebody lives in a trailer park, you just can't say they're a bad person.
Right.
But the individual had that mindset, and she brought all this bad energy, and it was in a bad part of town, but it's still, to me, you have to clear your mind before going into an investigation, whether you have to do meditation to achieve that, whatever it takes to achieve that clarity. You cannot go into an investigation with the troubles of the day still on your mind.
That's true. Oh, there's a question in the chat room. They want to know, have you ever met any of your spirit guides or deities?
I was just starting, like I said, I was more exploring the spiritual side of things. And before this pandemic hit. So everything kind of stopped at that point. I was going to a place in Cleveland run by Michelle Bellinger. Do you guys know who that is?
Yeah, I know who she is.
Yeah. She's, oh my gosh, you ever have a chance to hear her speak, do it. She's right on the money with what she talks about. But I was just in the midst of, I was going there for meditation to learn meditation so I could meditate better. Because for me, my mind I couldn't clear it easily. I'm just like bouncing all over the place. But, she really helped me get to that point to where at least I could really let things go. But no, I guess my answer for that question would be no.
Okay.
In the meditation, one of the things that always was frequent in these meditations was I was in front of a lot of people, and it was like they were expecting something from me. They were all in period clothing. I'm going to say, I don't know, maybe 20s or 30s, something like that, or maybe further back in time. But I never, now looking back at it, I wish that things wouldn't have happened the way they did with the pandemic, because I would like to know, I never got past that point to where, okay, what am I doing here? What are they expecting from me? I mean, it's just like I'm standing behind a podium or something like that, and they're either waiting for me to tell them something or do something.
For me, when that happens, it is actually spirits that are earthbound and are wanting to be crossed over. I don't even have to be like asleep or in meditation or anything. I can just go and lay down at night and close my eyes. And as soon as I close my eyes, I see all of these people. And I'm like, oh, okay, time to cross you over, So then they're just waiting for me to cross them over. So maybe that's what they were hoping from you, because you could see them.
That's a very interesting aspect. I mean, I never thought about that way, but I never thought, why they would want to cross over. I mean, I myself, when I'm dead and gone, I don't want to cross over unless I can come back. Now, if I can come back, then
You can come back.
Yeah, because I like to, keep an eye on my grandkids.
And you can view from where you go. You can still view things happening on this plane.
On this plane.
Mm.
What about when you are there? When you're at the light, can family members still see you, or is it just from your point of view?
I've found in my experience that when somebody thinks of somebody or talks to somebody that has passed on, it brings them to that spot. So as long as they, are trying to connect with you, then you would be able to go there.
Go there.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious. My oldest grandson, who is now 8, when he was just a little toddler, that was the year I retired. So I go pick him up every day, spend the day with Grandpa, But one of our routines was my ex-wife she had an old piano. She had this one room in the house that you weren't allowed to sit in. It had all antiques. So, but we would go in there. The piano was there mainly for looks. It didn't play right. It was way out of tune, but it looked nice. Looked like it was a beautiful piano. So I just let him go in there and bang on the keys. The most I could play for him was chopsticks, and that was it. But every once in a while, he would look up in the corner and he'd wave. Now, this is when he was 2 years old. And, I told my daughter about it, because my daughter and I are really, really connected big time. If I'm feeling down, she'll call me out of the blue. She knows, what's going on, Dad, that type of thing. But I was telling her about it and how many times she had done it. So she waited. She gave it a little bit of time, probably about a week or so. Then she showed him a picture of my father, who passed away in 91. And she asked him, she goes, "Is this the man you're seeing at Grandpa's house?" And he said, "Yes."
Aww,
so
sweet.
To me, my father was coming to visit him, because he never got to see him. And my dad loved my kids when they were little. He spent a lot of time with them as well. So now, from that aspect, do you think he had crossed over?
Yeah, he still crossed over. He's just visiting. My children, and actually one of my daughter's friends could see spirits. And I was at a meeting one day, and she's like, "Your grandpa says hi." I'm like, "My grandpa?" And I'm like, "My grandpa's not here." And she's like, "Yeah, he's standing right beside you." I'm like, "Oh, my grandpa." Okay. So yeah, I mean, they can come and visit, whenever they want. They can peek in and just see how you're doing. And they have there is no time over there. Oh, yep, somebody said something about that in the chat room. There's no time. And
Exactly.
the time is just a human invention, so it has nothing to do with all the other realms. So they can be there whenever.
Yeah, because I looked at it as, if you go to light, and it's just from my experience from talking with other people, nobody ever really talked about after they went to the light. And in fact, a lot of the teams won't do that, and a lot of these popular locations, which I call places of notoriety, they will tell you, we do a private investigation, and they'd say, "Don't send anybody to the light."
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Jen.
With that, we're going to take our commercial break. We'll be right back in 2 minutes with Todd. Stay tuned, everyone. Okay, I can't
Just gave me
see.
a giggle.
I can't see. Wait, Todd's got his phone up, right?
Yeah.
When I open the other window, I can't see what he looks like. I only see a picture of Todd. I'm not
Huh.
sure he's going to be in the window.
I can see his face perfectly.
In the
Yep.
window?
Uh-huh.
In the window, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can see myself, but it's like a little thumbnail. It's very small.
Yeah,
Right.
you're smaller.
Because it really only works when the phone is horizontal. That's when it works the best. So because it's going to cut off part of the top and the bottom of your phone. There you go.
There you go.
That's better.
Oops.
That's better.
Yeah, you know what? I've got green screen stuff, and I actually thought about it. If I would have had time, I could have put a green screen up because I've done green screen work before. Because I can see that Jen and Tammy have a green screen up.
You can see my green screen?
Yeah,
Well, you
Jenna
can see
took,
the
Jenna
pictures,
took
yeah.
that picture
Yes.
in North Carolina
It
at the
looks
BigFoot
like-
Museum.
You guys are behind a green screen, right?
I am.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not. I just have a background.
Oh,
Yeah.
'cause you got
And I'm
that
at a
all
hotel, so I'm
open
kind of
gap.
stuck.
You
Oops,
got
I gotta
that
take it off.
light
Sorry, my
little
family's on.
border around. Looks like green screen. That's why I thought.
There you go, breathing right into that microphone, Jen.
How much time?
Luke, I am your father. Any second now. There's that noise. Welcome to the show, everyone. This is the Journey Radio Show. And hey, we're the She-Squatchers. Won't you check us out online at She-Squatchers.com? And you can see all of our stuff there. We don't have any events currently planned. We've got expeditions planned, so we've been working on that. So if there's any events out there, we're in the talks with different ones. So for next year, so if anybody is looking to have us come speak at their event, get a hold of me and Jen Cruz. She-Squatchers@yahoo.com. Give me an email. Or send me a message on Facebook. That's actually the best way to get a hold of me is Facebook. Anyway, so also please follow us on Facebook and Instagram, She-Squatchers Official. And then the most important thing ever, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, She-Squatchers Official. So tonight we've got Todd, and I don't want to murder your last name, Todd. Can you say your last name for me?
Schelat.
Schelat. That's who we've got tonight, Todd Schelat, and he's been sharing with us his background in the paranormal, where he started in the paranormal. So let's continue on with that because I think that was really interesting. And he also is a Bigfooter. He was on an investigation and expedition with us in Ohio recently. So back to what you were sharing with us, Todd, because it was very, very interesting.
I forgot where I was at.
You were talking about how there was this group that was not thinking it was a good idea to send spirits to the light.
Yeah, I mean, the groups that I've worked with and the experiences I had, locations that we've done, the locations of notoriety, they actually would insist that, nobody gets sent to the light. So because of that, I always thought, well, once they go to the light, they come back. That's why I was asking earlier if you guys thought they could come back, or I was asking Tammy that. So, I mean, I think it's cool if they can. We are, I guess you could say, a free will. We should be able to move as we choose to. Keep an eye on our loved ones, give them signs. Whether
I
it be
wonder, were they telling you not to send them to the light because they didn't want the place to not be haunted? And they were afraid that if you sent them to the light that there would be no more spirits there?
Exactly. I mean,
that is very selfish.
Yeah. I mean, these are places like Mansfield, Licking County, Madison Seminary. I'm going to say probably 95% of these popular locations for paranormal investigation would tell you that. So I always
That's a
thought,
good way to get a poltergeist, because you're holding spirits against their will. That's not going to end well.
yeah, I mean, but unless we're trapped, we can pretty much, I've always felt we can go anywhere we want, trapped. And that was another thing. If I remember correctly, when I looked it up, a ghost was a spirit that was trapped, and a spirit is an energy which can move to and fro and basically go where they want. Now, what do you guys think about that?
I guess for me, I don't separate ghosts from spirits. I think that there's earthbound spirits are people that have not crossed over, and they are typically, they didn't cross over because they were holding on to something that they couldn't carry with them, that they weren't willing to let go. So they had unfinished business, so to speak. And so while they're here, if they've finished their unfinished business and they just need help crossing over, I think that's really sad that if people aren't helping them to do that. Because if you could hear them cry out for help, which I have, they sound very desperate. Help me, and to free them from that suffering that they're going through, I think is a blessing. And yes, they can come back. They're actually just free. They're a free spirit after that to do as they please. So it's I'm not Catholic, but I started looking into purgatory because I was like, well, why do Catholics have purgatory and all the other Christian faiths, which came from Catholicism, do not have purgatory? So what is purgatory? And I started looking into that, and I came up with my own idea that purgatory was actually just basically lost spirits that were earthbound, outside of their bodies, and were stuck here and hadn't crossed over into the light yet. And I went and talked to some priests, and they agreed with me that that's what it was. And they actually had a day a year where all the Catholics are supposed to pray to help these people cross over.
Now, would you link residual hauntings into earthbound, or you think they're separate?
No.
Residual is more like a recording.
Yeah,
residual is just a replaying of an event in time, and you just happen to witness it.
Like a caregiver that, or not a caregiver, but say like a maintenance guy at a school. He mainly worked there because he loved being around kids. And, after he passed, he went through that same routine at the school every day, which makes sense to me. Makes perfect sense. I'd like to be the ones that, I don't want to be earthbound. I like to be able to move around, because I like to mess with a lot of people when I come back.
Watch out, Todd has a list. Todd has a list.
You're on the list, and you're on the list.
Well, I wouldn't scare them. I just do little things that make them think they're, going nuts or something.
My kids are worried that I'm going to haunt them. They're like, when you die, don't you haunt me. Don't scare me. I'm like, oh, come on.
Do you think the more we know about death, the afterlife, do you think it's easier for us to do what we want in the afterlife?
Well, I think that once you die, that all the stuff from being alive, it doesn't matter anymore. Those rules don't apply to you any longer. So I don't think that it's easier, because when you die, you remember everything.
Yeah.
And so it's not, what you learned here. The things that we learn here, I feel, are the lessons that we need to learn as humans to learn empathy and love without boundaries. And I think that everything that happens here is a lesson for us to get to more of a divine level. And that's why we're here. So I think that once we die, that there's none of this, what did you do, and how did you learn to process death? It becomes a human problem once we pass over.
Once we cross over.
Yes.
Crossover. Yeah. So not necessarily the earthbound spirits who are trapped in their own personal hell of whatever they can't let go of.
Yeah. And I've often wondered, with some spirits, does it take them longer to figure out how to come back to us and let us know they're okay, or they just come back in their own way to give us signs, because we all know the signs, the coins, feathers, things like that, that are supposed to be signs that we might have loved ones visiting us and or friends.
I think I don't know, I guess it's different for other people, for each person. For me, myself, if I'm talking to somebody who I know is going to cross over, I'll be like, okay, you do this, and I will know that it's you. Mm-hmm. And so I have that. But for people that I don't, communicate with, I think that they would probably do something that they feel that the person would know and recognize as a sign from them.
Do you believe in visitation dreams?
Definitely.
Because I had one. I was going to share with you guys.
Please.
And this is why I asked if you thought some spirits may take them longer, or because they have to learn how to communicate with us, or not. Because here's a good example. A good friend of mine, we were like brothers growing up. In the 80s, he was killed in a tragic motorcycle accident. And I was devastated because we were like brothers. We did everything together. After high school, he moved to Toledo, but, he would come back and visit on a weekend, and I'd do the same. We just alternate and hang out. But anyways, I was just devastated because this is my best friend, since elementary school. And one night I had a visitation dream. One of the things we would do when we go to visit one another is, we'd go to the local bar. And there was one in Kent called JB's. We'd go there to shoot pool. So, and I hadn't been to the bar since he passed away. So anyways, my dream starts out. I'm in this bar, and I'm not even playing pool. I'm sitting at the bar. And he comes up and taps me on the shoulder. And out of shock, I go, "What are you doing here, Mike? You're dead." And the thing is, this really prompted me to do more research on visitation dreams, because it was so real. He had his favorite brown leather coat on. The colors were all there. It wasn't black and white. It was all colors. But after I had said that, he goes, "I just want to let you know it's okay." I'm sorry. He just said, "I just want to let you know everything's okay. Don't worry about me anymore."
For real. No, yeah, my father also came to me. It was just a couple of days after he had passed, maybe a week. And he was leaning into a glass door and waving at me, and he had his sunglasses on. He was younger, and he had this shirt that he always used to wear that had a sailboat on it. It's like the scene in California or something like that. And he was happy, and he was just smiling and waving at me. So they definitely can come and let you know that they're okay, especially if you're concerned about them or really upset about them.
Yeah, because and the reason why I was leading up, telling you this story, because I was leading up to when my father did die. I expected him to come back like my friend Mike did. And maybe I expected it too much, but he never did. But I think he came back in another form, or another way, in a way of maybe suggestion. And this is why I was a technician by trade. At the beginning of my career, I knew pretty much everything about automobiles, but I didn't know anything about diesels. The 2 years I had didn't go into diesels, and we started to switch our equipment from gas powered to diesel power. And the newer ones, they're a mess. There's so much electronics. Like a diesel from the 60s, you could hop in it and drive off. It was, no electronics involved. Those were really easy. But, getting into something I'd never been to school for was a bit of a challenge. But, working on, and my father was a master technician on everything. I learned a lot of what I know from him. But, I would be at the point where, I didn't want to tell my boss, and I feared telling my boss, but I said, I was at the point of saying, we're going to have to send this out. And then the notion just popped in my head. I don't know if it's because I do have that mechanical ability or not. But, it popped in my head, and, this happened on quite a few occasions. So I often wonder, was that my dad putting that suggestion into my mind? I don't know. It's a theory. No comments, huh?
Well, I was waiting to see if one of the other ones wanted to talk,
Okay.
but hey, here I am.
I'd like your input.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That the same thing happened with me a lot with like schooling and my daughters too. I've noticed I never really considered myself to be good in the sciences. And I took this biology course in college and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pass this. This is really hard. And I mean, I studied really hard. I really did. But when it would come time for the tests, I just knew it. And I mean, I got like hundreds on all these tests in college. And I'm like, I don't know how I know this, but I'm going with it. So, and my daughters too, they said, I don't know why, I don't feel like I know the information, but whenever I go to take the test, it's just there. So I think that, I must have a scientific ancestor or somebody that's hanging out and being like, this is the answer right here. So I really think that they could definitely communicate and put, suggestions and ideas into our heads.
Teach you knowledge, yeah. Because even my boss was like, he knew the extent of my abilities as far as gas engines. So he'd be like, there'd be times where he was like, how'd you know that? You didn't go to school for diesels. How'd you know that? And I'd just be like, I don't know. It just popped in my head and I did it. And, that was it. So.
And that could also be, like a spirit guide as well, giving you that information, not necessarily just a family member, but just some person, entity on the other side, that cute hat, Jen, that is lending you a little bit of help. So
that's cool. I always like that. But it's been a very interesting ride throughout the years. I very much enjoy every bit of it. The BigFoot research. I mean, this is just. I'm really excited for this. This is, I think we're going to have a great time this year. I think we're going to uncover a lot of things, and it's just. I'm really, really looking forward to it. I'll be honest with you guys. When I worked with you on that Saturday, I knew how these things worked. When we did the filming, we interviewed multiple people at different locations. And then when it came to the editing room, then they decided, who's going to stay and who's not going to stay. So I knew, I kind of figured, well, they did interview other people. I think maybe they had a better chance than I did. So I was really super, super excited when you guys asked me to join. I was like, yes.
Yeah. And it was, we don't necessarily, go and put a bunch of people together to do things, but it just kind of melded together. All of us is like, okay, we all had this basic idea and we all wanted to do this. So we did it together. And now we've got a couple more expeditions coming up that, we're not going to really say about where we're going right now, but we are really excited to be doing a couple more documentaries and getting to go out with you and Jason Kenzie and Chad Dedema and Sherry Barca, was it?
Oh,
and I don't remember. And then Sean, that was on the radio show previously, I think, is going to join us on at least one of those expeditions. So yeah, we're really excited and we've got really fun things coming up. And what are you hoping to get out of the expedition? Not necessarily the filming part of it, but just from the expeditions.
I hope to learn more. Like I said earlier, it's one of the best things about being in this field is working with other people and learning from other people and hopefully teaching other people some things, so the experience, the possibility of getting some really good data. I'm just excited about it. It's just, I just think it's going to be an awesome year. I think we're going to have one heck of an awesome year this year. And I'm very excited to see what kind of data that we are, able to capture. I know it's going to be tough. It's going to be a hell of a lot tougher than, looking for spirit. and getting the data we need to prove to people, hey, this creature does exist. I mean, I was just reading the other day, I'm going to forget the name of it, but they had recently found this new species of ape in Borneo, southern, oh gosh, I'm going to forget all these countries because I was just reading it the other day, but it's a very docile, small ape that actually they had this huge sac underneath their jaw, and they're actually next to what the sperm whale is, the loudest mammal in history, I believe.
Okay.
They're the next loudest to the sperm whale.
Really?
And it just goes to show that they're finding, these other creatures. They're still finding creatures, and some creatures are just they have the art of not being seen. Just like that woodpecker we were talking about, I'm going to forget the name.
Pileated woodpecker?
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of those in Minnesota, but I know that they're not real common in a lot of places, but in Minnesota, I saw a lot of them in my yard.
Yeah, they're supposed to be indigenous to Ohio. I did actually see one beginning of this year, and I think I was just as startled as he was, because as soon as he saw that I could see him, he was gone. But up to that point, I'd never seen one.
Right.
Like, that's a big ass woodpecker. I mean, he was huge compared to what you're normally used to seeing. So of course,
and I think that you're right. I think that all of us, coming together, you were saying earlier that, I don't know as much as you. I don't agree with that. I think that we all bring something to the investigation, to the table, and we all have knowledge that each other can learn from. And I think that's the best part about doing these types of things, is that we can be together and learn from each other and teach each other and expand our knowledge and the world's knowledge and experience on all of this. So I'm really excited for it.
Oh, exactly. I couldn't agree more. I think we're gonna have a hell of a good time. Set aside any shenanigans, which I feel there's going to be quite a few of those.
There will be many shenanigans.
We always have a good time. There will be lots of laughing and falling down, and then more laughing at Jen when she falls down. That happens.
Laughing at Chad when he falls into a river.
I don't want to see anybody to fall down. Sorry. Especially after hearing about poor Chad. You guys, he should have been in the hospital.
Well, Tammy, you need to tell the story now that you've mentioned it.
Okay. So we were on an expedition in Ohio. It was dark. It was very, very dark. And we were all still just getting our equipment out of the vehicles and getting ready to go do this expedition. And all of a sudden, Chad pops up. He's like, well, I'm done. And I'm like, what do you mean you're done? We haven't even gone anywhere yet. He's like, nope, I'm done. And he's soaking wet. He's like, I slipped on the edge of the riverbank. I fell into the river. I am done. And so he's sitting there. He is covered in mud. And he's sitting there. And he takes off his boot and he dumps it out. And it's full of muddy water. And I'm just like, yeah, dude, you're done. You need to strip down, cover up in a blanket, and stay in the heat. You can't investigate anymore. It was so funny, though.
It was a 30-foot drop. A 30-foot drop.
It wasn't a straight drop. He slid down the bank. He didn't fall.
Well, I guess that goes to show when you're hunting Bigfoot, it's good to bring an extra pair of pants, socks, boots,
shower,
or a bucket, so at least you can rinse yourself off.
And everybody was laughing and laughing.
So much laughing.
It was pretty funny. I did feel sad for him, though. He was so cold. It was cold that night. And then,
it was.
Yeah, it wasn't good for him. No, he got in the truck and turned on the heat, and there he stayed while we went off tramping in the woods in the dark. And we got to hear the whoops and the tree knocks and the movements and all that fun stuff. And he missed out. So
was that after the rain? Because you guys had one night of rain, right?
Yeah, it was the night after the rain. It was nice and muddy. I think that's why he slipped.
Yep. You got too close to the edge and it just collapsed. So
If you guys were where I met you at, I could see that happening because that area over there really is always wet when it rains, and it takes.
that is where it happened.
That's where it happened.
Yep.
And, you know, it's lucky that it wasn't really deep water that he fell into because, I mean, he could have drowned if it was.
Yeah.
And if he wasn't near 7 feet tall. So.
And they really dropped the water level out there this year early. Usually they don't drop it till the end of October. And they dropped it really, really early this year for whatever reason, because that is a reservoir and they do control the flow of the water through there.
Yeah, it was definitely a good time. We did get rained out, literally rained, like swamped out with rain. I felt bad for Chad's tent that got literally completely soaked.
I told him to put up a tarp. He's like, nope, I want to see how waterproof it is.
He definitely found out. It's very waterproof.
Well, most tents are waterproof, aren't they?
Water resistant.
Water resistant. I don't know. I've never got wet sleeping in a tent, so I just assume maybe it lacked treatment, I guess. Well, and I hope you guys are able to come out to Ohio again. There's so many other places I wanted to show you.
For sure.
Well,
and I
we'd
want
love
to do some
to.
paranormal investigating in Ohio as well as Bigfoot hunting. So
Yes, I think we should blend the two.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think that would be. I think ghosts know a lot. We could ask them.
Right?
Yeah. And that's another thing. I think the spiritual side of what we do, I'd like to think that it kind of ties over or comes over to, you know, Bigfoot research, because, you know, there's been a lot of times where I've been out in the woods. I typically go by myself, and I just got the feeling that somebody else is out there. I just can't see them. Somebody else or some other thing is out there, and I just can't see them. Oh yeah, I think I can't remember if I was telling Tammy, but when I was on the Appalachian Trail, I came up on the camp I was going to stay at for the night, and I'd gotten there earlier than I expected. I actually was thinking maybe I'll go to the next camp, but with the rain coming, this actually had a shelter. So, you know, I was weighing the differences. Okay, if I stay in the shelter, I'm not going to be carrying a wet tent all day tomorrow. So, but I got there. I was one of the first people there, and as soon as I got close to that shelter, just huge, just felt like a huge weight, a large, very big sense of dread there. So much so that I called my daughter just to have somebody to talk to, because it just had a weird feeling there. You know, I can't explain what it was, but, you know, it kind of makes me wonder, you know, did something actually happen there at one point in time? You know, was somebody killed there? Did a lot of people die there? Because, you know, before, a lot of things happened on that trail before it actually became an actual hiking trail. And same goes with a lot of areas in every state. There's an area in Peninsula, Ohio, where it's said to be, you know, there's a lot of bad things.
We're out of time.
Sorry, ladies.
All right.
Okay, Todd needs to come back.
He definitely needs to come back.
Thanks, Todd. I hope you will come back and talk with us again, because I think we have lots more to talk about. Good deal. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week. Good night.
Good night.